What up, though? Detroit versus everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lawrence Report, and we will be discussing BMF Season 3, Episode 1 on tonight's broadcast. I'm excited about this series right here, and I already know what you're thinking. I don't see no BMF content on your channel. Keep in mind, I just started my YouTube channel a couple months ago, so I have been live tweeting all the time whenever the show premiered, so take a look at my tweets right here. You can see right there that I have been involved. I have been engaged with this show right here, y'all. So, like I said, y'all, it's Detroit versus everybody. You know, from the womb to the tomb, baby. I'm so excited to talk to y'all about this season of BMF. I mean, we got Raw Dog Charles. We got Lucille and the divorce. We got Meech and Terry. We got Markeisha and the baby mama drama. We got drama with the gangs. This season right here is going to be a absolutely crazy season for BMF right here. Let's get into BMF episode 1. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to the cast and crew. It looks like BMF season 4 has just already got renewed ahead of season 3, which is absolutely amazing in itself. So Green Light Gang, they ain't playing over there. Shout out to 50 himself, the man over there at Stars. Now, let's get into what we can expect from Season 3 of BMF. Season 3 picks up early in the 90s with Meech moving to Atlanta, hoping to grow the BMF empire in the South and rise to the top of the Atlanta drug scene. At the same time, his brother, Terry, remains in Detroit handling business there, not yet aware of all the dangers that are lurking around each and every corner. Now, in episode 1 of BMF, they quickly pick off from where they finished off from last season, right? We see Terry and Meech, they're in this jail back in the day. They're talking about a plea deal, but then we fast forward to Markeisha. You know, she was shot last season, and Terry, you know, he's scrambling, he's hurting. She's hurting, she's in the hospital, she's feeling like she can't make it, and Terry's just absolutely losing his mind, right? So Terry, you know, he gets a visit from his family, right? And they're trying to calm him down. And he basically spills the tea saying that, yeah, it was Markeisha that got shot. We was at this light. And his baby mother's there with the family, right? And she's like, Markeisha. And again, she completely goes berserk. She goes crazy. She's angry. And she basically says, you know, well, she basically says, well, Markeisha is, you know, a married woman who has kids, and she basically been sleeping around, right? And Lucille has no clue about this right here, right? And at the same time, you know, Lucille makes a comment. You know, she says, well, the apple doesn't fall from the tree, right? Basically saying, well, you know, Terry, you know, your daddy was a dog and you basically a dog following his footsteps, right? And of course, my God, he's not my God, but Charles caught a mean stray with this right here. And, you know, he tells Lucille, like, this is not the time to go into our marriage situations. Because, you know, Charles, you know, we call him Raw Dog Charles. You know, he's on a different level. Now, this part that I'm about to say for Lucille is absolutely crazy. So, you know, Lucille, you know, she's working hard at this Wendy's right here, trying to make ends meet. I mean, my God, people are asking for extra barbecue sauces with these nuggets. People are asking for drinks with no ice. People are asking for double cheeseburgers. It's a lot of that is on Lucille's plate right now, working at Wendy's, trying to hold the fort down for the home, right? But there is a little sigh of relief that is coming her way, right? Roland, one of Meech's boys, right? He comes in with a key. He has a key to Meech's parents' house, right? And the dad was like, yo, you got a key to the house? And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So this guy walks in with, I believe he has some dinner or something like that, some steaks for the family. He gives Lucille some flowers. And he hugs on Lucille kind of tight. And, you know, the dad is looking around like, hey, brother, hey, I'm still the king of this house. And in fact, he tells him whenever he's walking him out, he's like, listen, yeah, don't bring your little hind part around these parts anymore. This is still my house right here. And now we get to one of my favorite parts of this episode. I'm talking about Raw Dog Charles and Lucille. You know, he noticed his wife looking out the window. And, you know, it's so much destruction that is going on around them, around the parents, right? And, you know, he walks over to his wife and he says, Lucille, are you okay? And she's like, well, I'm not really okay. You know, she hugs him. At first I thought he was getting ready to make out. But it turns out that she says, I used to feel so safe in your arms, right? But we know Charles is smashing the other lady from last season, right? So again, she tells him, I want to move on with the divorce. And Charles is like, Lucille, my Lucille, I love you. Please don't do this. I barely can afford, to pay rent here. You're telling me I gotta find another spot? And she tells him, well, sleeping on this couch right here is going to be your best bet. And poor Charles. And Terry's little sister Nicole, she's seen so much throughout the entire history of this show when it comes to parents arguing, drugs, people being shot at, people being arrested. I kind of feel bad for her because I feel like she's the only one sometimes in the family, besides the mom, with common sense. So again, this little girl has seen so much in her lifetime, and I'm curious to see, how they continue to develop her and, and what they would have for her moving on in this series right here. So basically from there, Terry ends up calling Meech, right? And he tells Meech everything that's been going on with the Markeisha. And Terry's like, yo, I could care less about Markeisha if I'm keeping a beam with you. If I'm keeping it honest, I'm more concerned about my brother, and you should be thanking God that you are still here with us. And Terry's like, yo, at the same time, I don't need guys around me that are going to continue to tell Meech about my every move. If you're with me, you're with me. If you're not, go down south to Georgia with Meech if you're trying to do that right there. Because again, he feels like, dudes are constantly, going back to tell Meech, his every single move. And of course, Terry, he's trying to stand on his own now. This is his territory. This is his community. For the longest, they've always ran things together, but now they're separated, right? So Terry is going to finding his own crew, and Meech is going to he's going to end up finding his own crew basically in Atlanta. So they're moving weight in two different stratospheres basically. And we are getting a lot of entertainers, rappers this season right here on BMF. We're getting Neo and we get 2 Chainz. They both debut in this episode right here. In this episode, we see Neo. He is basically the club owner of Magic City. And, Meech is trying to set up shop down there in Atlanta. And he tells him, I'm going to need Neo's character tells Meech that, hey, I'm going to need about 15 racks. And then, Meech is automatically turned off. It's like, what you mean 15? And then that's when Neo's like, listen, I'm the only man you got here. It's 15 or take the highway. So again, Meech is caught up. He's like, you know what? It is what it is. I'll do the 15. So Meech and Rodney, aka Greeny, Neo's character, they end up going to the strip club to handle some business, right? And Meech is basically about to get acquainted with Ty Washington's old crew, right? Like his old boys, right? And of course, Meech, while he's being at a strip club, he's going to check out some things, if you know what I mean. So he ends up meeting Ty Washington's crew and talking about Duffy, Diesel, and Rip, right? He noticed, this is when we see 2 Chainz character, right? He noticed, that 2 Chainz character has on Ty Washington's chain, right? He's like, yo, is that Ty Washington chain? He's like, yeah, well, Ty Washington was basically like a nephew to me. And, both those guys are, still grieving about, what happened to Ty Washington. And before you know it, they end up looking over and they end up seeing Remy. Remy is the guy who killed Ty Washington. And Meech calls him a predator, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, And they end up going into this big old brawl right here in Detroit. Strip club, bottles flying everywhere. It don't matter. It's Detroit versus everybody. You know what time it is. Now, as far as Remy, he has been a thorn in the BMF saga for quite some time when it comes to Meech and Terry, right? And now he's basically, the king of this housing project, I guess you could say, basically in Atlanta, right? And he's kind of like a Robin Hood type figure in this hood, basically. And he's giving out these lunches. But in these lunches, I'm not even sure if this is actual food or is a combination of drugs as well. So maybe it could be a little bit of both, right? But, this unit pulls up on him, right? And he's like, listen, I know what y'all about to do, but can y'all do this, outside of the kids? And one of the officers is basically like, yo, he pulled out that Michael Jordan meme. You know the Michael Jordan meme I'm talking about. When it came to those kids, he tells them, yeah, we ain't worried about those kids right there. They get to this big old scrap. And it turns out that this unit right here It's actually called Run Every Drug Dealer Out of Georgia. This was a unit that they had back in the 80s because basically they was trying to get the Olympics down there in Atlanta. They're trying to clean up the territory, and that means including Remy's area where he's currently staying at. So after that, we see Markeisha basically waking up from the hospital, and that's a good positive sign for Terry and everybody, right? And at the same time, she's like, listen, I love you. I want bygones to be bygones. You don't have to go back and strike at, the guys who Boone basically set to try to hurt and harm us, right? But Terry's like, listen, I got us covered. I got to do what I got to do. Also, I forgot, we got the detective. The detective, his son, is currently in jail from everything that he did from last season, right? And his son is kind of like a nerdy guy. And there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. I'm not saying that. There's nothing wrong with being a nerd. He draws these comic books, right? Bruiser. I think that's the name of the comic, right? And we all know basically his son, I think they said later on this episode, his son is basically about to get sent to juvie. And that is going to be a wake-up call for him. Because again, his son doesn't really know about how dangerous this outside world is. He thinks it's all about comic books and everything is light nature, but it's a real hard world out here. And I hate this for the son, how he got caught up in just a horrible situation. Even later in this episode, we see the father, he snaps at his son. He's like, yo, don't ask any questions, because he even takes away his comic books and pencils, because in juvie, a pencil is considered to be a weapon. So his son, wow, it's going to be interesting to see how they develop that right there with his son, Kevin. When it comes to the precinct, we got two new characters that we'll be seeing that'll basically be overseeing a couple operations within the precinct. So again, they're adding more people to the cast, which I think is dope, especially in the precinct. I feel like it was kind of getting boring just between the other two characters that we had, between the detective and his partner, but now we're adding more characters to the precinct. So again, the dynamic in that right there is about to get crazy, I feel. Now, as far as 2 Chainz, he's basically playing this neighborhood dope boy, right? He's pushing the weight, he's moving around, right? And Meech tells him, I'm going to cut you a deal, right? I'm going to look out for you because, we all know Ty. Ty was like family, right? But 2 Chainz character doesn't really trust Meech yet. And I'm wondering, will 2 Chainz character end up getting caught up in some type of crossfire in this series right here? So now there's this all-out gang war that's happening, with Dice, right? He is transporting the bag or whatever. And, within this bag right here, all these other gangs are basically waiting for this transport to happen. He ends up getting shot, but Meech is able to carry him to safety. And Meech is at the same time able to get the bag. But again, when it comes to this type of warfare, it is every man for it, except despite all the gangs, the Miami gangs, everybody in Detroit, Atlanta, all the other gangs, it is every man for itself. And since, Markeisha's feeling better, she's basically now free to be released from the hospital, right? And Terry tells her how he plans on buying a house, and, their family's going to live together and things will be happily ever after. He says, nobody messes with my queen, right? But he's like, yo, you're not going back to Boone, right? And she's like, nah. So Terry's like, listen, you just come spend that in my house and we'll just figure out things from there, right? So he brings her over to his house. So now basically, Terry is caught in between both these ladies, his baby mother and his current lady that he is with. And I feel like the mother, talking about Lucille, she is very attached to Terry's baby mother. So again, I think she's going to have to choose a side as well, because Terry's actually going to make her choose a side. Remember how I said, we had a bunch of new characters and there's a new detective? Well, the old detective currently, in this episode, we see her smuggling these drugs. So again, this old detective, I can't think of her name right now, but y'all know her, the Asian lady, I can't think of her name. But she's basically going to get caught up, and we're going to see how that plays out, because it ain't going to be good. And then at the end of this right here, we see Meech trying to get into this club. But again, we see Remy. He is basically, he has Dice's body. He takes Dice's body, he just throws him out. And I'm like, oh my God. The territory, beefs, the gang wars, it is about to get bigger and bigger as the series progresses. BMF, y'all. My lord, I told y'all my favorite scene, and this one right here was with Charles. You know, he's a character, but man, the way this whole territory stuff is about to be, brace for impact. BMF, y'all. If y'all watching it, please let me know in the comments what was your favorite scene and what do you hope Terry and Meech will accomplish this season right here. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Lawrence Report.